Hi, everybody. Lucas Gilkey here with Cynthia Cabrera as always. She's just mad because I didn't give you the intro in the last one. We're here to cover Pandora's box and the dangers of a national, unregulated, hemp-derived, intoxicating cannabinoid market.
I'm scared.
It sounds horrifying, but it's not. It's actually comical. So we're going to go ahead and dive into this. Thank you for joining us as always, and this one should be fun. So let's talk about sort of the players involved in this. We've got the CCIA, the California Cannabis Association, which right out the gate is misleading because they don't represent cannabis, even though throughout this paper, they consistently refer to marijuana as cannabis. Let's be clear. Cannabis is everything. Cannabis is the entire plant. It is all of it. It is all-encompassing. And then from cannabis, there is hemp and there is marijuana, two distinctly different things because of government regulatory and government terms. This paper tries to muddy that whole thing and refer to marijuana as cannabis, which technically it is, but so is hemp. And so right out the gate, it's already misleading. The name of their group is misleading. Gonna start there.
Why is the name of the group misleading?
Because it's the California Cannabis Association. They don't represent hemp. It's the California Marijuana Association.
Yeah, you're right, because this whole white paper is just like...
This is marijuana.
Yes, okay.
Let's be clear about that. This has nothing to do with hemp other than them shitting all over it.
From the get-go, the association is disingenuous.
Yes.
Okay.
Using cannabis in a name and then fighting against hemp is just bad. Like, that is disingenuous and it's misleading. This is not a cannabis group. This is a marijuana group.
Fair.
Let's be clear.
Okay.
So we've got Pamela Epstein, who's the chief legal and regulatory officer. She's involved with Eden Enterprises, Terpene Belt Farms, and the CCIA. We've got Nicole Phillis, who's an LA attorney that is involved with marijuana. And we've got Adrian Devitt Lee. Looks like he's got a degree from Tufts, some industry experience. Somebody that's been, I've seen a few of his articles. He's a cannabinoid scientist. Not a marijuana scientist, but I'll let it slide. So we've got a sort of group of people here that are anti-hemp that have come together to put together a white paper to shit on the hemp industry. So here's the executive summary with all these, sort of dishonest words thrown in. While cannabis and its derivatives remain federally illegal, massive loopholes in the federal definition of hemp are being exploited by, quote, hemp product manufacturers to sell extremely potent, often chemically synthesized intoxicants that are more powerful than anything available in licensed cannabis dispensaries. Right out the gate, they're starting with the cannabis term and avoiding the term marijuana. And this is throughout this whole white paper, you're gonna see this. But right out the gate, second word, cannabis. While cannabis and its derivatives remain federally illegal, that is not correct. Marijuana and its derivatives are federally illegal.
Exactly.
Massive loopholes in the federal definition of hemp. They aren't loopholes, and we're going to prove it to you by their own language in this paper.
On that sentence, here, my first issue with this white paper was, are being exploited by hemp. I'm using the air quotes, but there's quotes here. So exploited, so already they're attaching motivation to people.
And the loophole word, don't forget the loopholes.
You know how I feel about the loophole word. It's the new word I hate. But like exploited, like it's like a drug ring or a child kidnapping ring that's exploiting young people.
Yep.
And then the hemp, like hemp isn't a real thing. Like hemp hasn't existed for hundreds of years. Like it's a made up term. Hemp, like what the hell is this? I mean,
So the funny part about this paper, and we're going to go through it piece by piece, but throughout it, they're essentially agreeing that it was likely that everything that was done around hemp on the federal level was intentional. They even use the word intentional. They say intentional or non-intentional, but they use the word intentional because they fucking know. They know. And that is completely disingenuous. Everything from the very first sentence of this paper, it's disingenuous, it's misleading, and it is bullshit.
More powerful than anything available in licensed cannabis dispensaries. Your shit's illegal. Your states, certain states legalize it. It's federally illegal. Putting the word licensed cannabis dispensaries is a misnomer.
The DEA doesn't raid hemp dispensaries, hemp stores,
I
right?
wonder why.
And the DEA, they've ceased. They haven't done it in a while, but for a long time they were raiding licensed California dispensaries. Why? Because it's federally illegal. That has not changed. There is a discussion around descheduling, but it has not changed. As of right now, marijuana, not cannabis, not hemp, marijuana is federally illegal.
Do you get the feeling that maybe there were like some bong hits before they started writing this white paper?
No, I don't think they use cannabis at all. I don't think these people have anything to do with cannabis. The fact that we'll get into some of my beliefs around that later, but I don't think these people really have a clue what they're talking about.
So if you take it from the top, number one, hemp product manufacturers are exploiting legal loopholes to sell unregulated, highly intoxicating cannabinoid products without regard for public health or safety. That's bullshit. I mean, I'm just going to call it the way it is. So hemp is legal. States have regulations around hemp products, but somehow this white paper starts off with an unmitigated untruth. What do we call that now? Oh, it's a lie. That's it. To just like start off wrong. They come in hot and they stay this way.
Introduction. Again, while cannabis and hemp are the same plant, cannabis is the main plant, and this is the problem I have. These people don't even understand what they're talking about. Cannabis sativa L is the government term for the plant. All parts of the plant, all of the plant, hemp and marijuana are included in that definition. They're disingenuous. They're saying cannabis instead of marijuana. Every time they use cannabis in this paper, they should be using marijuana. While marijuana and hemp are the same plant, legislators and regulators have created a broad artificial distinction that separates the two based on the quantity of delta-9 tetrahydrocannabinol, the psychotropic compound commonly known as THC. Again, cannabis and its derivatives remain federally illegal. Marijuana and its derivatives remain federally illegal.
You know what my note is on the top of this thing? Hysterical whining. Hysteria and histrionics.
So what they're pushing for, so here they allude to it, the ultimate solution is I'm quoting here, the ultimate solution is a single federally regulatory framework that oversees both hemp and cannabis-derived cannabinoid products for human consumption. So what they want marijuana to be lumped in with hemp because hemp has more favorable federal regulatory and it's legal. So they're taking an angle that is extremely disingenuous because they want marijuana to get lumped in with hemp and make it legal because it's currently illegal. It doesn't even make sense.
Well, okay. Also, they do this throughout this entire white paper, rife with contaminants and chemical byproducts, but we can talk about the California market.
Oh, we will. We're going to touch on
Hang in there. Okay. And then, and this is the thing that irritates me. There is just say the words, right? So the sentence is, many of these so-called hemp THC and THC-like products, they're not so-called. You don't have a problem with this? Take it to your government. The government decided that hemp meets a specific definition. Why do you have a problem with that?
The big one I want to touch on right here. So, short of a significant regulatory overhaul along these lines, interim steps must be taken to protect consumers nationwide. One action would be revising the U.S. Farm Bill to close loopholes that, intentionally or not, have encouraged a proliferation of tainted synthetic intoxicants or mega-dose THC products in unregulated markets. Let's touch on that for a second. So, they are wording this and essentially agreeing that it's highly likely that the way the Farm Bill was written was intentional. And let's talk about the why behind that, because a lot of people don't touch on this and they call it a loophole and they just gloss over it. So let's be clear. Right now, the U.S. has the best thriving, most advanced hemp market in the entire world. Why? Because of the Farm Bill legislation, right? And because of the states that have adopted it since, and subsequently the industry has exploded and it's bigger than marijuana. So the marijuana industry right now, not the cannabis industry, the marijuana industry is on its heels because the hemp industry is now bigger and overtaking the states, right? So what is the play? The play is they have to either get rid of us or they have to figure out a way to lump in with us. And that's essentially what this paper is doing. Their position is essentially to get rid of the entire hemp industry or appropriate it, like what's trying to happen in Texas right now, with Texas Originals trying to appropriate the entire hemp industry into Texas and put it into medical marijuana. So they're either trying to get rid of it, they're trying to appropriate it, or they're trying to lump in with it, right?
Yes, I agree with all of that. And the thing that really just like irritates me is, why do all these anti-hemp people, and I don't care if you say that, these people, they want it, whatever, these are anti-hemp people, period. The sentiment here is hemp is terrible, needs to go away because it doesn't benefit the marijuana side of the equation. So when they use sentences like, there's no testing standards, there's no regulation, and it's sold in smoke shops and online, well, that's called commerce. Yeah. That is exactly what it's called. And if you don't like what's happening on the marijuana side, why don't you come into the hemp side? But instead, they're just going to cry about it.
Another step aimed at protecting Californians right now would be for the state to immediately enforce prohibitions against selling intoxicating cannabinoids, whether, quote, hemp or cannabis-derived, outside the regulated cannabis market where extensive consumer protections already exist.
And by regulated cannabis market, the authors mean the marijuana market.
Correct. Cannabis and hemp, what's the difference? Again, it's marijuana and hemp. Hemp is cannabis. These people don't even understand basic...
But they wrote a white paper.
And they even refer to it. The bottom line is that they are the same plant species, known as Cannabis sativa L. Correct. So why, how do they not understand? So I feel like they're playing this game of they named their group after cannabis, and it should have been marijuana. So now they're using interchangeably these words because they screwed up in naming their group, and it should have been named a marijuana group. Because
the alliteration is so much better. California cannabis versus California marijuana. The first one has a much nicer ring to it because the alliteration is there. I
love the extent they go to try and differentiate cannabis and hemp. Hemp is cannabis. There's no way around it.
No. It's your lying eyes. Cannabis. Hemp cannot be cannabis.
Cannabis has referred to plants bred and grown for maximum resin content. In other words, drug plants. These people are killing me. Listen, this is like basic marijuana, hemp, cannabis stuff, and they don't get it.
They have to create this division in order for them to make their point. Otherwise, it doesn't work.
Look at this. The Controlled Substances Act of 1970 formalized this colloquial distinction. It defined cannabis or marijuana. Yeah, it defined marijuana as all parts of the plant containing Cannabis sativa L. The resin extracted from any part of such plant and every compound manufacture, salt, derivative, mixture, or preparation of such plant, its seed or resin, while excluding mature stalks, fibers, sterilized seeds, and products made from non-resinous parts of the plant. Today, however, federal law has a blunter definition. It officially characterizes industrial hemp as having no more than 0.3 THC by dry weight.
Wait. 0.3% delta 9
Correct.
THC.
Correct. So that is not correct on their paper, irrespective of its overall resin content. In other words, the Farm Bill of 2018 codified the 0.3% delta 9 THC, which they don't have in here, limit for hemp, and the quantity of THC displaced resin content is a key factor distinguishing hemp from non-industrial cannabis. It's all hemp. It's all hemp. There's no distinctions within hemp, and you can't create there is no industrial cannabis section of hemp. It's all hemp. Anything that qualifies as less than 0.3% delta 9 THC on a dry weight basis from the initial grow, it's got to be from the initial grow, but anything that goes through that process and is technically hemp, it doesn't matter if it's industrial, it doesn't matter if it has cannabinoids, it's all hemp.
You're focusing on facts. And
I do this every day, and these people are just, they didn't even pay attention to.
You're ruining everything by focusing on facts and reality. Stop it.
This is the crazy bullshit that we deal with on a daily basis from the marijuana groups, putting this nonsense out into the public, and then we have to go do damage control and clean it up because these people literally have no clue what they're talking about.
These people might actually drive me to do drugs.
I'm gonna go do a 100 milligram gummy tonight in their honor. Because apparently that will kill me based on what they say. We're going to test that theory.
Okay. Okay, so rather than clarifying the difference between hemp and cannabis, it clarified the difference between hemp and marijuana.
No. It inadvertently muddied the waters, according to them.
Well, and they're supporting that here by saying rather than clarifying the difference, but they're using the wrong word. And it's very frightening to me, like if I was someone in the California market who was depending on these folks to save them through some regulatory or advocacy or something like that, and they don't know the difference, like this is a big concern.
So we'll go to a sentence they have it's in a section called Blurring the Lines, page 4. Having eroded the line between traditional hemp and cannabis. Hemp is cannabis. I can't with this. And they do this throughout this entire paper, and it's very disingenuous, and it's obvious what they're doing. They don't want to use the word marijuana. They're trying to position themselves as cannabis versus hemp. Why? Because marijuana and hemp are the same plant.
Okay, and here, so in bold, many of today's hemp, and this is them using the quotes, hemp products, which are sold online in convenience stores and in smoke shops and gas stations, are as intoxicating as regulated cannabis products.
Marijuana products.
Correct, marijuana products, if not more so. Number one, boo-hoo. Number two, where's your evidence? I don't have enough time to listen to all the marijuana people talk about how much stronger the strains are today than they were 50 years ago or whatever. Where is this? I don't see a footnote here.
So I love that they actually quoted the Farm Bill, the section on hemp in the Farm Bill. They actually quoted it here, and I'll read it. And it's interesting the note that they have under it. This is from the Farm Bill. The term hemp means the plant Cannabis sativa L and any part of that plant, including the seeds thereof and all derivatives, extracts, cannabinoids, isomers, acids, salts, and salts of isomers, whether growing or not, with a delta-9 tetrahydrocannabinol concentration of not more than 0.3% on a dry weight basis. Under this, they have three phrases are critical. Quote, all derivatives, quote, whether growing or not, and quote, not more than 0.3 delta-9 THC on a dry weight basis. Now, this is their wording. This language has unintentionally given rise to the wild west of hemp-derived intoxicating products we see for sale today.
Wait. So earlier they say intentionally or unintentionally, and now it's fully unintentional. And this thing of the Wild West, why don't they come to a state that has hemp regulations and deal with that, as opposed to throwing around? Because you know what? The marijuana space is the Wild West, right? People are still selling stuff out of their cars. The black market, the illicit market in marijuana.
California in particular, a lot of the product that they produce goes to the black market. And we're going to talk about it. We're going to talk about why and talk about what's going on. But largely throughout the country, the marijuana regulations have been just bastardized, and they've been horrible, and they've been set up in ways for these programs not to succeed. And so hemp is version 2.0 of what could have been with marijuana, and it's doing it better. And the marijuana people are getting upset. Like, you bet on the wrong horse. You can change your bet, by the way. The hemp industry welcomes all. We're all cannabis, right? We're all cannabis. Let's use their words. We're all cannabis. Come join us.
Yeah, why do you care so much which part of the plant you're using? If it's all cannabis, why do you care so much which horse you're on?
And why do you want to keep your crappy regulations? Like, ditch the crappy regulations.
What do you call those people? You know that they have Stockholm syndrome.
This CCIA group works with the government. They have the ability to lobby and to change regulations. If your industry sucks, call your lobbyist. Go fix your industry. Don't mess with ours and ruin ours because yours sucks.
I really get irritated about this wild, wild west nomenclature or verbiage, because you could say that about the marijuana industry. And this is the thing that irritates me. It is all the same plant. And this is the thing that irritates me about the marijuana people, is that they act like somehow something has been taken away from them. All these VC companies and all these people who invested dollars and all of that, they made a calculated risk. Mm-hmm. They took a calculated risk.
Correct.
Whether it's working out or not is not on anybody else. They made a choice, and all of a sudden it's like, boo-hoo, I made a choice and I don't like it. Yeah. Fix it for me. Change your choice.
So next they go into too much THC on page 5, and they're referencing that there are no limits for THC in hemp products, but yet here we are, and using the 0.3% THC limits that we have by dry weight basis. By the way, it's delta-9. They just listed as THC and just throw this all-encompassing THC thing. Coming from a group of professionals, I would expect them to reference it as delta-9 and just broadly THC.
Before you go there, looky here. So come up with an intoxicating dose, right? So they're talking about hemp products. An intoxicating dose. Well, let me ask you something. What is it that makes marijuana intoxicating? What's the dose that makes marijuana intoxicating? And I hate the word dose. What is it? It's
different for everybody. It's impossible.
What?
It is impossible to give a standard dose recommendation. It's why we don't do it. Some people, 5 milligrams is fine, and then there's people like me that 100 milligrams is what I need to sleep.
But how can all these intelligent people be talking about how there are intoxicating doses of hemp?
I don't think they have anything to do with
cannabis. But they make no reference to intoxicating doses of marijuana. Are you telling me that people are using marijuana to not be intoxicated? By the way, is the wrong word for all of this.
Wait, marijuana gets you high?
What? You better shut the front door, man.
I don't know if I believe that.
You're lying at
this synthetic marijuana stuff.
What? Here's a little gem right here. Keep in mind, who writes a white paper that says keep in mind? Keep in mind that THC is a potent compound, a dose typically measured in milligrams, thousandths of a milligram, not grams, in the regulated California cannabis market. It's regulated by the state. It's
illegal California marijuana market.
It's an illegal market. The feds hate it. The feds don't want it. And they have the audacity to say in the regulated California cannabis market, like that's a thing.
Hemp manufacturers producing compounds not native to the plant. That is actually disingenuous because some of the stuff they reference is found in the plant, even though they say it's not. And then they actually agree that it's in the plant later.
Wait.
These guys are double talking all over the place.
I'm telling you, I think they were trying their own stuff. Or it says, or not present in meaningful quantities. I cannot stress this enough. The federal Farm Bill definition as it stands does not indicate how and what quantities the naturally occurring hemp derivative or cannabinoid derivative has to be present. It just says that it occurs naturally. That is it. It doesn't say in what quantities.
Yeah, they've got a whole bunch of stuff listed here. The big one was Delta 10, which is not native to the plant.
Since when?
Delta 10 is actually native to the plant.
It is indeed native to the plant.
Mm-hmm.
And also, they say extracting and concentrating CBD and then modifying it to produce new synthetic and semi-synthetic cannabinoids. Again, the conversion method they're talking about is what happens with aspirin, vitamin C, thousands of consumer packaged goods that everyone uses every single day. And again, the Farm Bill definition for hemp does not indicate what the method of conversion is. It doesn't tell you how you have to arrive at the final product. None of that. So again, boo-hoo.
So the next topic, section.
I really have to calm down. These people irritate me so much.
I know, they make me so mad. Bottom of page 6, questionable safety. So this is a really fascinating transition they make where they essentially go straight into synthetic cannabinoids they call SCBs. The synthetic cannabinoids, just so we're clear, are spice and K2. These are products that are highly illegal. They've been illegal for a long time. People were put in jail for these products.
They're illegal in every state
They've
and
killed people.
federally.
It's illegal, every step of the way. So now they're lumping hemp into synthetic cannabinoids, which hemp is cannabis, they're cannabis. So these guys are just making stuff up again. They're literally citing, so if we go down here, July 2022 study by scientists at Portland State University documented that THC acetate, like vitamin E acetate, by the way, vitamin E acetate came from California, if I'm not mistaken, the huge vape pens where people died and they got pneumonia and all this stuff.
Marijuana vape pens.
Marijuana vape pens from California.
From California.
Where this report came from and where these people are, and they're actually, they have the balls to cite the vitamin E acetate that was caused by marijuana and killed people throughout the country.
Did we not just sit through a hearing in Texas where all these parents were telling us their stories about how their children had moved to Colorado?
The Valley vaping crisis.
Yes.
From California, just so we are clear.
Marijuana products. Hemp was not even a thing when this was happening. It was marijuana products contaminated in these pens with vitamin E acetate.
So the bottom phrase they have at the bottom, we cannot assume then that in meaningful quantities, these novel compounds have the same safety profiles as cannabinoids that are native to and abundant in the plant. So look, if you're talking about spice and K2, yes. But what they are trying to do is lump hemp in with two illegal, highly toxic, highly dangerous products, and that's not the case. The Farm Bill's definition of hemp based solely on THC levels overlooks a wide array of possible intoxicating derivations, some with known potential side effects and others dangerously unstudied. Look, if it's from hemp, it's legal.
Lucas, I want you to do what I want to do.
Burn this thing?
No, this is what they're saying. Do what I want. Forget the facts, forget reason, forget logic, forget all that stuff. Just listen to my word salad and then do what I want you to do.
This hurts my brain.
It is also worth noting that insofar as cannabis is highly taxed and hemp is not, consumers are incentivized to choose these unregulated products.
Can I reword this
Sure.
the way it should be said?
Go ahead.
It's also worth noting that insofar as marijuana is highly taxed and hemp is not, consumers are smart to choose these legal, federally legal, and state legal products.
Well done.
Boom.
The other thing I want to say about this sentence is that they agreed to these ridiculous taxes. They agreed to these ridiculous regulations. They agreed to all of this.
And they have the ability to fix it.
They do have the ability to fix it.
Contrary to what most people believe, the marijuana industry in most states has the ability to change the regulations if they actually wanted to.
Yes. So they agreed to all of these things.
But they choose not to.
They choose not to, and then they go, boo-hoo, mislabeled and appealing to children. This is the next topic or subject in this white paper. So we're now in a situation, it says, where intoxicating hemp and cannabis products are both readily accessible in California and nationwide, with one key difference. So-called hemp products are unregulated. That's the key difference. You would think that 3 people working on a report, that somebody would have visited Dr. Google or Mr. Google and said, hey, is hemp regulated anywhere in the, I think AI would be able to tell you, is hemp regulated anywhere in the United States? And then you wouldn't be writing a paper that is incorrect. So the other thing is mislabeling, brazen marketing to children. And then below, they show you examples.
I've been in hundreds of stores throughout the country, and I have never seen any of these products anywhere.
Really? But here are some marijuana products.
Whether or not it's hemp or marijuana, there's always going to be bad actors. And there are bad actors in both. And for them to say it's only in hemp is very disingenuous.
Super disingenuous.
The marijuana industry, the cannabis industry has the same problem, right? There's always going to be bad actors in there. And that's
Why don't we make a white paper where we show all the bullshit marketing that marijuana brands use?
It serves no purpose.
Oh, I know. Like this paper.
It's a waste of time.
Yes, like this paper. The regulated cannabis industry is prohibited from mimicking conventional snack food, marketing products as candy, or making products that appeal to children. I'm sorry. Let's just do like a quick, milk run thing to all the legal states and gather up some products, because we will dispel this myth right here.
Yeah, that's going to go nowhere. I've been in the regulated state legal, not federally legal, marijuana industries throughout the country, and it's, there's bad actors there too. It's no different.
When you say regulated, do you feel like a big weight and a burden on you?
Well, a state saying something is legal when it's federally not, you can call that regulation if you want, but it's still an illegal product.
Correct.
Okay, so is it legal? Top of page 8. Industry stakeholders widely assume that the 2018 Farm Bill intended to legalize non-intoxicating hemp products. They added that word in, such as CBD. However, a recent court decision affirmed that intentionally or not, Congress left the barn door open. That simple phrase nullifies this whole garbage paper, because if they're even hinting at the fact that the Farm Bill was done intentionally, the way it was written, which it was, this whole thing is meaningless.
Well, yeah, this is a whole...
I'm actually surprised that they even allowed that word to be there, because the rest of it is fairly disingenuous. But them saying intentionally or not, it really puts the whole paper into question of what is even the purpose of this if it was done intentionally.
Oh my God, that's a great question. What is the purpose of this paper?
It serves no purpose. By them putting that sentence in there, this whole thing is garbage.
It was already garbage, True. To be fair.
And let's be clear. Look, these people have careers, they have lives. This was a hit piece. You come after us, we're coming after you. That's the way we play this game.
I mean, it is what it is.
No hostages.
Yeah.
You wanna take a shot at us, we're taking a shot back.
Even if nobody who contributed to this article had any time to get on Google and tap some keys. They could have called someone in the hemp industry and said, hey, do you know of any regulation?
Well, let's be clear. Pamela Epstein has a company that she represents that is in the hemp industry. Terpene Belt Farms is hemp-derived cannabinoids.
I wonder if okay, whatever. That begs so many questions.
And then, Louis, if you could put the website up for the Terpene Belt Farms. She's the legal counsel for them, and they're pretty clear about the legality of hemp on their website. And I'm going to make the reach and the assumption that she probably read that and proofread it before they put it on their website if she's their legal counsel.
So then you have to
And
ask
so there's
yourself-
notes on their website about the legality of hemp that is completely counter to everything that's said in this paper.
I have to laugh because otherwise I'm going to punch you. I mean, not you, just somebody.
Well, they're just hypocrites.
But why is the word here? So the sentence is, various state courts and legislatures have affirmed the legality, again with quotes. It's affirmed or it's not affirmed. Legality is not this vague concept.
And this is where people in the marijuana industry I get frustrated with, because marijuana is not federally legal. I don't care what anybody says. I don't care about the rescheduling. It has not happened. That's been a discussion for years now, and it has not happened. When a rescheduling happens, then there's another conversation to be had about, at that point, what is the legality of it? But as of right now, marijuana is a Schedule I drug, federally illegal, and if you contact the DEA and ask them if marijuana is legal, they're going to say no.
You sure?
Now, what happens if you ask them about hemp?
What? Get out of here. They're going to say yes. We should point out that the Farm Bill definition, being as broad and expansive as it is, was meant to promote innovation, to drive an industry, and that's exactly what happened. They want, and if Congress didn't want that, then they wouldn't have voted for it, right? But
Correct.
the only explanation for the broad terms and the broad definition is that they meant to stir innovation and invigorate the industry, and that is what has happened. And you cannot tell me that the USDA didn't know what they were doing, because they have experts, they have doctors, they have lawyers, they have consultants, they have chemists, they have all these people that contribute to this. Nothing comes out of the USDA quickly. There's a lot of conversations and committees and meetings and this and that and all this other stuff. And as a matter of fact, the 2018 Farm Bill underwent some revision after people submitted comments. So it's very thoughtful, and it's a very long approach to it. So to say that it potentially was an accident, or that's not what they meant, or that's not what they wanted, is BS.
So they're citing a case of AK Futures versus Boyd Street Distro, 9th Circuit, 2022, affirming a district court's decision that products containing Delta 8 THC are lawful under the Farm Bill because they meet the statutory definition of industrial hemp, even though they can get consumers high. They meet the definition of hemp. AK Futures is significant because it is the first time a federal court has ruled that a psychoactive cannabinoid derived from industrial hemp is lawful under the Farm Bill. So hemp is federally legal.
Yes. Also,
Yeah, we knew that. Thanks.
well, so the next paragraph says, Ninth Circuit ruling contradicts the Federal Analog Act, which states that any substance that has a stimulant, depressant, or hallucinogenic effect on the central nervous system that is substantially similar or greater than the stimulant, depressant, or hallucinogenic effect on the central nervous system of a controlled substance shall be treated, one or two, shall be treated as a Schedule I substance. That's the definition of marijuana.
Correct. Now, let's talk about this, because not a lot of people know this, and the only reason I know it is from hearing conversations with you and with the attorneys. There is a DEA Orange Book called Approved Drug Products with Therapeutic Equivalence Evaluations. And so, from my understanding, as you're going through sort of the U.S. Department of Agriculture and the DEA, the DEA at one point refers out to the USDA, correct?
Yes.
And incites essentially for hemp refer to the USDA. So the DEA concedes
The DEA
authority.
actually changed their definition for hemp in the CSA. They changed it. They took it. They exempted it from the CSA.
Yeah.
So.
And that's what I was going towards. Is the DEA has essentially removed themselves from the hemp
Correct,
discussion
because it's no longer
They have no enforcement
federally
ability.
illegal. Why would they be involved? Correct. Yeah. Also, it says here, and this is just like such a packed statement, with companies overtly marketing cannabinoids like THCO and HHC as THC analogs and synthetic compounds. Have you met or seen any product at any point that advertises, hey, we're a THC analog or a synthetic?
They use that language purposefully because now they're referencing the DEA issued an interim rule reiterating that all synthetically derived tetrahydrocannabinols remain Schedule I controlled substances. Marijuana's illegal. Just throwing that out there.
But listen, on the hunt for bad-looking products, they couldn't find one that said, hey, we're a synthetic cannabinoid, this is how we market it? Wouldn't that have been a good photo to include?
Oh, but that last sentence is interesting.
Let's see. Regardless, hemp purveyors, I like it, claim that the Ninth Circuit opinion supersedes the FAA, rendering the latter moot on this point. Nobody says that. Nobody says that. Find me one person who has said that.
And there's also been no enforcement from the DEA on hemp, and it makes all their points moot. Oh, but now they're saying that it should be under the FDA.
Wait.
Now it should be under the FDA, which oversees new drug development because these are new compounds, if they exist in the plant at all, which they do, and they have a chemist involved in this. So I don't understand how they don't know.
Wait.
How do they not know if these chemicals are in the plant?
These are your lying eyes. This is like telling the story that the way
But then
you
they say,
wish it
look,
were.
listen to the sentence. These are new compounds, if they exist in the plant at all, and then right after that, it's only in minute quantities.
Which is irrelevant because the Farm Bill definition doesn't
But
specify.
they're literally, they're going from one stance to the next, just literally throwing all this stuff against the wall to see what sticks. This is a shotgun report. This is a let's throw a whole bunch of shit at the wall and see what sticks and see what people think is important, and then we'll pursue that path. This is
I have a different opinion of this
pure
paper.
trash.
I have a different opinion. Also, this paper is giving me a headache. There is also a solid argument that the novel cannabinoids being marketed under the guise of legal hemp fall squarely under the purview of the US FDA, which oversees drug development. Well, I'm pretty sure the FDA punted that decision to Congress, and Congress kicked it back to the FDA. So apparently no one is super interested in any of that. Also, I'm pretty sure I've seen marijuana cookies. Have I never seen a cookie?
Gummies, cookies,
Oh my gosh.
nerds ropes,
What?
all kinds of fun stuff that you can eat.
What? Why
That's-
isn't
that's
that
the-
under the
that's
FDA?
the
Because the
core of-
FDA regulates what you consume. Why isn't that under the FDA?
Core of the
you know
cannabis
why?
industry.
You know why?
Why?
Because states decided to defy the federal government and legalize anyway, which is why they ended up with super burdensome things like track and trace and super high taxes and ridiculous amounts of background checks to the extent that nobody can make any money because it was never going to go under the FDA and it's federally illegal.
So if you go to the top of page 9,
By the way, I just want to be clear for all the haters out there. I don't have a problem with a state exerting its rights and saying, oh, we're going to do this thing in
that's the way it
defiance
should
of...
be. That's the
Absolutely.
purpose of the states.
So I'm not hating on the states for doing it. I'm hating on the marijuana industry for being a bunch of crybabies and not telling the truth.
Yeah.
Are you going to skip over while cannabis has been safety tested on a massive scale over hundreds, if not thousands of years?
Thousands of years
Please
of
tell me.
medical... Wait, but
Hundreds.
in our hearing, they couldn't find one thing.
I know, but what testing were they doing thousands of years ago?
Smoke this and see what happens?
This is like sci-fi now.
This stuff drives me crazy.
Hundreds of thousands, if not thousands of years. Okay. Also, the next sentence is several states, including Colorado and Vermont, have issued rules excluding chemically synthesized cannabinoids. First of all, everybody has their own definition, so we need a glossary. Second of all, because these are marijuana-friendly states, and kudos to the marijuana folks because they got there first and they were like, hey, people are going to die if you let hemp, which is less potent than marijuana, on the market. And so, but to quote states with recreational marijuana is also disingenuous.
Top of page 9, quote, but ignoring state and federal laws to the contrary, hemp companies are building a robust, intoxicating cannabinoid market on the disputed legal foundation of the 2018 Farm Bill and the recent Ninth Circuit decision.
You know who's disputing it? marijuana people.
That
Nobody
is the
else.
most
They're the only ones
disingenuous
disputing it.
sentences.
Everybody else is okay. Everybody's feathers get ruffled because the marijuana industry doesn't like it.
This thing is full of so many lies. This one sentence, ignoring state and federal laws to the contrary. Hemp is legal. Marijuana is not. And this is something that we're seeing consistently, whether it's from our hearing or marijuana industry white papers, whatever garbage they come up with. They're essentially attributing everything negative around marijuana to hemp and saying that they're the golden knights and that they have the ability to do this stuff and keep everybody safe and it's all this and that. Oh, but we're going to touch on that in a little bit. We'll come back to that.
Your lying eyes. Okay.
We'll come back to that.
Conclusions.
I'm gonna let you dive into these. These are too much fun. I don't know if I can handle it.
The notion of legalizing intoxicating cannabinoids, like they have in California, okay, simply because they are derived from hemp is ludicrous. I love that word, ludicrous. A comparable scenario would be deregulating wine on the grounds that it derives from grape juice. An intoxicant is an intoxicant. Well, how come they're not calling out intoxicating marijuana? If an intoxicant is, by the way, intoxicating, or that word intoxicant, intoxicating, refers to the potential of the substance to be toxic to a person, right? So I don't even know that you could apply it to the cannabis plant. So it's not the correct word, but that's just
And they go straight into the synthetic, semi-synthetic,
Mm-hmm.
intoxicating cannabinoids is a public health disaster.
Wait. What is
Action
the
must be
disaster?
taken immediately to protect public
What's the
safety.
disaster? Because I'll tell you if you don't know the answer.
The disaster is that the marijuana industry in California hates hemp, and their regulations suck. They're overtaxed. They're going out of business. The whole marijuana market, marijuana market in California is federally illegal. So there's a state legal side and a state illegal side. It's all federally illegal, just so we're clear. So what everybody is upset about is the California state legal, federally illegal marijuana industry is having to compete against the illegal marijuana industry within the state, and it does not work. I know people in the industry. I know that they're upset that there's no enforcement on the illegal operations, and it's a mess. It's a mess. And so, unfortunately, in a lot of these cases, hemp takes the blame for bad legislation, bad decisions, and everybody blames it on hemp because hemp is a better option, a better solution than these garbage marijuana programs. The one in Texas is horrible.
The public health disaster that they're referring to, what they should have said is, and we're going broke, because there is no public health disaster, because there would be a public health disaster with marijuana, which all these states, as you say, it has proliferated in, right?
Yeah.
Legislation.
Well, where's the health issues?
There are no health. What?
Oh, but they reference Spice and K2. Oh, those health issues.
You mean the people keeling over on the streets because they had a hemp gummy?
Yeah,
That
and
one?
the Spice and K2 stuff, love the reference there, even though it has no
Nothing
application to hemp
do-
whatsoever.
Yes.
Nice tie-in.
Action must be taken immediately to protect public safety. Hold that thought.
We're coming back to that one. Congress needs to close loopholes in the Farm Bill that are being exploited.
So they need
But you said in the paper previously that it was possible that it was intentional, but we're exploiting
But what?
it. We're exploiting
Can
it.
two things coexist? What?
They're just grasping at straws
It's
here.
like sci-fi. What's the thing in sci-fi? Oh, the parallel universe. Thank you. Okay, so consumer safety, okay, and we fully support consumer safety. We do a lot of testing. We support testing everywhere. Cannabis needs to be legalized and regulated at the federal level. Well, it is. It's called hemp. Right? Okay.
Correct.
All
and it's
plants,
illegal.
So what they're saying here is all plants grown.
So hold on, let's go back to that. Cannabis needs to be legalized and regulated at a federal level. So hemp is legalized,
Yes.
and hemp is regulated at a federal level, right? So marijuana is illegal. Then they go on to say, and all plants grown for cannabinoid content should be subject to a similar set of regulations. So the marijuana industry is so unhappy that the hemp industry doesn't have to play by the same rules. So this is where this is key, right? If you don't like your industry, leave it.
Wait a minute, but what does this mean? Should be subject to similar set of regulations rather than an arbitrary, unworkable THC threshold. There's no threshold on THC for marijuana. What's
It's illegal.
unworkable?
It's illegal.
But they legalized it in California.
Yeah, but on the federal side, there is no workability. It's illegal.
But
this is what they're upset about. They're upset that
so
hemp
it's
is
not an
federally legal.
unworkable THC threshold if it's zero. That's
Yeah,
not unworkable.
It's literally zero.
It's just
It's
zero.
illegal.
Okay. It needs urgently to be amended to close the loophole and or outside of regulated markets. Well, which is it? Are the markets regulated or, they mean marijuana.
Yeah.
Oh my
They're
gosh.
using that cannabis word again somewhere in there.
I don't know. Exercise oversight over novel cannabinoid. If you go to Schedule 3, you'll have plenty of time to spend with the FDA.
Yeah, that sounds like fun.
California needs to enforce existing laws. California has such restrictive laws on hemp-derived cannabinoids. I don't even know why this bullet point is in here.
So it's here because they literally passed the laws that this garbage paper wants, right? These laws already exist in California, but they're saying that they don't enforce them.
So they want the
This is the same group. This is the same group
Yeah, I'm sorry,
that
keep gripping
doesn't
your arm.
enforce illegal marijuana issues in California.
Are you saying that they're asking the feds to come?
No, this is state. They're asking the state to
If
actually
they're asking the
enforce.
state, then why are we talking about the feds? Congress needs to. That's federal.
Because the state of California is absolutely worthless on enforcement and gets nothing done. So let's talk about California and the state of the California industry and how good they are at regulating consumer safety.
Should we talk about? Are we talking about it in contrast to this report about how amazing the California market is?
Yeah, and it's safe and highly regulated, although federally illegal.
You know what I loved about this report, this white paper?
That we're done with it?
No, well, beyond that. But yes, what I loved about this report is that 5 minutes later, the LA Times article came out talking about what a shit show California.
Yeah, so there's two, subsequently, right after this report came out, there are two LA Times articles about how the industry is essentially poisoning people.
The dirty secret of California's legal weed. 25 of 42 legal cannabis products that the Times and Weed Week purchased from retail stores and had tested showed concentrations of pesticides either above levels the state allows or at levels that exceed federal standards for tobacco. The contaminants include chemicals tied to cancer, liver failure, thyroid disease, genetic and neurologic harm to users and unborn children. While this sounds like a super safe market, I don't know, do you think that any of those other folks from CCIA were consulted about this?
Some individual products contained as many as 24 pesticides. The findings dovetail with scores of complaints that two private cannabis testing labs have filed over the last 8 months, reporting pesticides in products certified by their labs as safe. The results, the lab said, suggest some level of contamination in more than 250,000 vapes and pre-rolled joints on store shelves, about the number sold legally in California in a 2-day period. So what they are saying is a large amount of the products within California contain harmful pesticides at levels that are federally illegal in a federally illegal product.
You know what makes this even more interesting?
That sounds like a health crisis.
It does indeed, because that's all they sell in 2 days.
And by the way, there's been no enforcement on this. Can
So-
we talk about that? There's been no enforcement on this. No product has been taken from a shelf, from what I understand.
So the state of California was made aware of all of this in like January.
And they've done
That's
nothing.
practically July.
They've done nothing from what I saw.
So they're talking about pesticides in pre-rolls, right?
Correct.
Okay. So the number one way that people still take in their marijuana is by smoking, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So
Flower is typically the top seller in almost every store.
Right. So from my years in the harm reduction space, working in tobacco harm reduction, I can tell you that the problem with cigarette smoking is that when you combust something, and this is an unpopular thing, when you combust something, it creates like 7,000 or 8,000 carcinogenic chemicals, right? So now...
It's amazing, by the way, how many people assume that when you smoke marijuana, you aren't essentially hurting your lungs.
Yeah, it's shocking, actually. It's absolutely...
And that, by the way, that goes for cannabis in general. If you are smoking cannabis, if you're setting something on a fire and you're breathing it in,
Not
it's not going to
No
help your
bueno.
lungs. It's
No
not
bueno.
going to make your lungs
Did you
better.
know that people who eat charred food have a higher incidence of cancer?
I have heard that.
Yes.
By the way,
chemicals.
for everybody out here that consumes cannabis and you're like, well, why is he talking trash on smoking it? There are vaporizers. We're at the point now where there's a lot of really good dry herb vaporizers that can allow you to smoke flower, vape, but you're essentially removing the moisture content from the flower with the terpenes and the cannabinoids and all the fun stuff, and you don't have to inhale the smoke. Stores and Bickle make the Mighty and the Venti, which are phenomenal. The Crafty's more portable. There's a lot of other companies, packs that make different devices. I prefer the Stores and Bickle stuff, but it's on the pricier side.
People want to smoke their weed. I don't care. You're an adult. You know, we just told you that there's 7,000 or 8,000 carcinogenic chemicals that, are created when you combust.
You're an adult. You want to make the decision, you can make the decision.
And who doesn't like some charred meat? Come on.
Hello?
Look, if I'm getting a piece of meat, I want some crust on it. There's a quote in here that I want to read. California Department of Cannabis Control officials declined to make anyone available for an interview. The agency also would not release either external or internal discussions of pesticide contamination and refused to release information on its ability to test cannabis products, saying such knowledge would encourage bad actors. They don't have the ability to test for this stuff.
They do not. And it actually says that, confirms that later on. And so they're supposed, but again, and the state of California was notified, including Governor Newsom, were notified in January, and it's practically July.
The agency is now scrambling to initiate California's first market test for pesticides, sending a recent email warning to license holders of coming product embargoes, voluntary and mandatory recalls, and disciplinary actions. They don't have the ability to test, but they're going to email people and threaten them.
California is the most beautiful state in the country, period. Hands down, it's the most beautiful state. And I moved here from a beautiful state, and that's still the most beautiful state. And it's also the best example of a state that overregulates everything to death. It is a perfect example. And so, to go back to what you were just talking about right now, the problem is that when you rush to regulate or you don't do a good job regulating, right, you don't think it through unintended consequences and all that other stuff, then you end up with a really crappy market where stuff like this is allowed to happen. So
yeah, here they say no state-run lab is accredited to test for pesticides.
Right. So they picked have you ever got into a Starbucks in California? It has the Prop 65 warning.
They have it on everything.
Disneyland has the Prop 65.
Correct. Because California, way to go overboard. All the time, whatever. Anyway, so this is a good example of how that doesn't, they want to test for everything, but they weren't testing for the right things. So if you look at this article, which is called A New Threat to Cannabis Users, Smuggled Chinese Pesticides, contraband Chinese pesticides present a new challenge for California cannabis regulators as they struggle to keep harmful chemicals out of licensed products. They're not going to keep them out of unlicensed products. Some of the poisons are so unfamiliar that few chemical analysis labs in the state would be equipped to test for them if California required it. So are they going to retrofit all the labs?
Well, so my understanding, from reading both these articles, a lot of, and that says it right there, smuggled Chinese pesticides. So there's pesticides that are coming in from China that are not allowed in the U.S., and they're being used in California marijuana grows.
Yeah, but
because obviously they know that nobody has the ability to test for them.
CCIA tells us California is such an amazing market, and the only thing wrong with the California
because
market
they're
is
involved.
hemp.
They're involved in that so the CCIA is very interesting. It's actually a advisory board to one of the state agencies.
Of course.
So you could argue that this shit show and the complete malfunction of the California marijuana market is largely due to the CCIA, who's now blaming everything on hemp. And not taking responsibility for their own garbage in their backyard.
So, according to this article, it says...
But hemp did this.
Yeah, yet officials have not issued warnings to alert those working on cannabis farms about the dangers of these chemicals or mandated that cannabis products sold to the public be tested for them. 6 months. And they still can't send out one alert, one advisory, anything.
So at the time these reports were put together, they said they estimated there to be 250,000 products on the market that were harmful to consumers. There's been no recalls, there's been no nothing. And my strong argument, my strong assumption would be nothing has changed. If there is no enforcement and there's no way to test for these products, nothing has changed.
Well,
Why would
it's
they
worse
change?
than that, because the 250,000 products that you just referred, that's what's sold over a 2-day period. And since we already know that California has a more robust illicit market than legal market, It's probably double that number in a 2-day period. So it's even worse.
Yeah.
Yeah. How come that's not in the white paper? The Chinese labeled pesticides have shown up now in at least 6 California counties at both illegal and licensed growing operations. The poisons were present on half of the 25 illegal farms found in Siskiyou County, raided by a task force, in a sting operation that saw 3 officers require medical treatment after suffering exposure. That's the public health crisis that CCIA didn't mention.
Yeah.
You're walking into a place and the fumes are knocking you over. You need medical treatment.
These
That's
are the
public
products.
health crisis.
These are the products they're putting on the plants, and the people that showed up to enforce it literally had to get medical treatment because of how toxic they are. And this is widespread. Let's be clear. The 2 articles and everything that we've seen emphasizes pretty emphatically that these are widespread issues throughout the illegal California marijuana market.
So is the pesticide issue that it's cheaper to just get illegal pesticides?
It's cheaper and it's effective. So there is a big push in the U.S. to basically limit what you're allowed to use on cannabis. Obviously, because it's being consumed, right? It's a direct consumption plant. It's literally coming out of off the plant and going into a shelf where a consumer can take it. So there's no real remediation of removing the pesticides from the plant. If they're on the plant, they're on the plant, right? So that's the problem of using these pesticides on a product that literally somebody is going to smoke.
Oh yeah, I mean they're going to combust.
You're going to inhale pesticides into your lungs.
Straight into the lungs. But at the end of the day, they're still illegal. They're saying these pesticides are illegal.
Correct.
So then there's an entire operation of bringing in illegal pesticides into the country.
Well, it's the same. It's the same thing as the fentanyl crisis, right? Like, my understanding is there's cargo containers of fentanyl coming in from China.
Yes.
And there's so many cargo containers that literally they can't do anything. I've heard crazy stories about people having cars stolen, and they show up in cargo containers, and they have the tracker on them, and U.S. Customs literally won't let them open the cargo container, get their car back because it's sealed and they can't do anything about it. So there's all kinds of weird stuff going on with the cargo containers.
I mean, I can't even read the names of these things, of these pesticides.
Yeah, there's a lot.
Here.
The list that I saw labeled 41 different pesticides.
So here we go. These unmonitored chemicals are so toxic, California advised cannabis enforcement agents to wear hazmat suits and respirators during field inspections and to undergo annual blood poisoning tests.
This is just a walk on a farm.
Repeated inhalation of pesticide residue through regular smoking or vaping is quite concerning, as this is a relatively direct route of exposure into the bloodstream.
Oh, he didn't say public health crisis, but I know he wanted to.
But yes.
I know she wanted to.
Public health crisis right here in California, boys and girls.
Yeah.
Stay out of Cali.
It's not him.
It's beautiful, but it'll kill you. Now Newsom will sue us for saying California will kill you. Oh my gosh. This is a report about the California weed market, marijuana, for those who don't know what weed means, the marijuana California market, okay? Oh my God, and it conflicts with the CCIA report because—
No, it doesn't. There's no way.
Listen.
They thoroughly researched that. They had experts. They have 4 pages of citations.
It says right here, despite state laws against marketing to children, many brands, and we're talking about the California marijuana market, regulated. Many brands reflect this youth appeal, from weed bags modeled after McDonald's Happy Meals to vape flavorings that mimic bubble gum.
You shut
This
your
is
mouth. Don't you
slander.
dare. Don't you dare say that about the
Is it
California
libel
marijuana
or
market.
slander?
Well, if it's truth, it's neither.
The facts are unflattering in the California marijuana market.
Yeah, I'm willing to bet they don't write another paper and take all this into consideration. You'd think they would update the one they just wrote.
I am not going to bet you a cupcake on that.
You think they're going to update it?
Oh no, that's why I'm not going to bet you. I would lose that bet. Yeah. There will be no update. There will be no report
There's
from
all kinds of hope that this
CCIA
stuff goes away, is what
refuting
there is.
these investigative reports in California. There will be none of that. There will just be a bigger spotlight on hemp as a method of diverting attention away from the actual public health crisis, which is pesticides in your marijuana in California that will kill you or can kill you.
Yeah, so this is a train wreck. And this is something we're going to continue to see, obviously, as we get deeper into legislative sessions, as they start in January throughout the country. We're going to see groups continue to go down the path that hemp is evil and take a prohibitionist stance. But the whole thing is just so disingenuous and so hypocritical when it's literally the same plant and you have people from the marijuana industry shitting all over hemp, saying how horrible it is, and it's the same plant. And then especially in bad situations like this, where you've got a group that is just ripping on hemp and not taking a look in their own backyard at their own issues and their own industry that is just a complete shit show. And a true public health crisis. Not the made up one, the sort of created one around hemp and around these issues around hemp and how they're saying it's a loophole. This is an actual public health crisis. People will go to the hospital and will die from this.
Are you going to believe me or your lion eyes?
So, on that note, thank you for joining us as always. This was a fun one. Cynthia and I get pretty heated about this stuff. We don't like it when people sort of trash our industry and talk bad about the things that we're doing to keep it safe and keep people healthy and keep people having access to the products they want on the cannabis side, on the hemp side, on the federally legal and on the state legal side. So it's very disingenuous what we're seeing come out of the marijuana industry and sort of them attributing blame for their own sort of faults within their industry, whether it's overregulation, overtaxation, pesticide issues, all kinds of stuff. People love to blame hemp for their issues within their marijuana industry and just make it all hemp's problem.
Yes.
But the reality is the marijuana industry is fraught with all kinds of issues, and that's why the hemp industry is thriving, and that's why it's the best in the world, and that's why Congress put the Farm Bill in place to make the hemp industry in the U.S. the best in the world, the most advanced, and that's why we're here. That's why we do what we do. Feel free to leave in the comments what you would like to see us do a video on, and Lewis will randomly choose and make us do a video on it. And I'm sure it'll be wonderful, but please, no more white papers for a little bit. I can't read this stuff. It hurts my brain. Happy hunting as always. Thank you for joining us. Thank you to Cynthia for being here with me and going through this stuff. The amount of brain damage it takes to read some of this stuff is just mind-blowing. But we will continue to do it to keep you all entertained. So thank you for having us here. Have a wonderful day. Talk to you later. We'll just stay on the bullshit train.
We're on the bullshit train. We're like hostages on the bullshit train.